Welcome to Bruce Hurwitz Presents Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Bruce Hurwitz of Hurwitz Strategic Staffing. You can find me on the web at hsstaffing.com. I hope you will consider us for all your staffing, career counseling, and speech writing needs. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by David Shriner-Cahn. We'll be discussing how entrepreneurs can build consistent, stable, recurring revenue. Meet the Experts is sponsored by P&K CPAs. P&K is a full-service accounting firm. They provide accounting and consulting services to businesses ranging from startups to small and mid-cap companies to nonprofits as well as high-net-worth individuals. Contact them today for a free consultation at pk-cpas.com or call them at 973-882-8810. They will be happy to be of service. David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bruce. Great to be on.
It is my pleasure. Please take a moment or two and introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. I'm David Shriner-Cahn. I host the podcast Smashing the Plateau. We have released over 400 episodes with experts, very similar to your show. Ours is audio format. We've been doing it for 5 years. And in particular, we've had many episodes where we talk about how to build consistent, stable revenue, particularly for people who are solopreneur experts. And to me, a solopreneur is not necessarily a one-person business, but there's one person who is the primary deliverer of the offering to clients. And we also work individually and in teams with entrepreneurs to help them grow consistent, stable revenue in their business.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for coming back on. You were on a few times when this was an audio podcast, so it's nice to be able to see you.
Nice to be able to see you too, Bruce.
It's a totally different experience. What do you mean by revenue? When you say revenue, do you mean profit or just revenue?
I mean revenue. The income that goes into your bank account.
Okay. Now,
very simple.
Very simple. That's fine.
And also the reason that we focus particularly on revenue for solopreneurs, particularly solopreneur experts, most of what they are selling is their expertise through the use of their time. So they tend to have relatively low overhead as a business.
This is true.
So the net income or the profit is generally percentage-wise fairly high.
Do you find, and now I'm just using myself as an example because this was a huge mistake I made when I got started. I thought I needed an office and all the accoutrements that go along with it, and I really didn't, and it cost me thousands. It was thousands upon thousands of dollars that I just wasted, and no need for at all. Do you find that that is a common mistake that solopreneurs make when they're starting out?
It was a common mistake, I would say, a decade or more ago. I don't see that happening as much now. I think that most of us have gotten used to the fact that technology allows us to do many things efficiently and relatively inexpensively that we had to do either in person or at much higher cost. As an example, you and I are now having a conversation with video, which frankly would have been hard to have even 10 years ago with this quality. So chances are, if we wanted to do a show like you're doing right now, like the one you're hosting, we probably would have done it live in a studio.
That's true.
And that costs an awful lot more than using something like Zoom or some other video technology.
Which is what I'm doing right now. And it doesn't cost anything. And just to bring this full circle, I started my business 10 years ago in 2009. So, in those days, as a recruiter, I had to meet with candidates face to face. I don't any longer. And as a matter of fact, there's an advantage to doing it with Zoom or with Skype in that I can see how comfortable they are with technology. But that's not our topic.
Right. I want to mention one other thing.
Please.
When it comes to overhead. You'll see not just solopreneurs or very small businesses that are working primarily remotely, but you'll see large corporations now where they assign space in their own facility, not like in the old days where you were assigned an office. But when you come in, the days that you actually come in, you get assigned a place to sit, and everything that you work on is totally portable. And you have many companies that are utilizing not just their space, but they're utilizing the space of intermediate companies like WeWork, which is growing by leaps and bounds here in the New York area, and also in lots of other locations worldwide, because companies don't want to invest in real estate if they don't have to. And of course, for the small entrepreneur, that is even more so.
I saw that once. I was meeting with someone when I was with on the board of the Manhattan Chamber of Commerce. They were an insurance agent, and we met at the front door. We just happened to arrive at the same time, and they picked up their telephone and they took it over to the desk, and I looked a bit confused, and she said, all I do is plug in this phone, and then the system knows who I am, where I am. The computer has all my records on it, everything. Tomorrow, if I'm sitting someplace else, it's the same thing. No one has assigned seating. It's not needed.
Right.
Now, consistent, stable, and recurring revenue. This sounds like the traditional sales pipeline.
What do you mean by traditional?
Well, when sales and marketing experts talk, they talk about the 80-20 rule, that you don't want 80% of your revenue or your business coming from 20% of your clients, because then if you lose a client, you're in deep water. So you should always have a number of clients waiting for your services, both prospects and actual clients to whom you can upsell. So that would enable you to have consistent revenue. It would be stable. So if you lost someone within a very short period of time, you'd be able to replace them. And recurring in that they like your service or your product, whatever it may be, and except in extreme circumstances, because it's going to happen sooner or later, they won't leave you.
Right. So it's important to have multiple streams of revenue. So you have some diversification in your revenue sources. So as an example, if you're a consultant, you could have not only multiple clients, which creates some diversity, but you could have different kinds of revenue. So you could have consulting income, you could have coaching income, you could have speaking income, you could have physical products like books or online courses, and the more kinds of revenue you have, the more protected you are from one of those sources drying up. So as an example, if you have online courses, that's a relatively new kind of revenue because the technology wasn't available to be able to do that until relatively recently. And the market is still trying to figure out how that is all going to work. So I suspect that if you're relying on online courses for a big portion of your revenue, you could be in for a bumpy road ahead. over the next, I don't know, 5 to 10 years as the market kind of shakes out.
What is your secret to building consistent, stable, and recurring revenue?
Well, the secret is actually relatively simple, and it's not rocket science, but it's hard for a lot of people to do this because it takes perseverance in the execution. And there are some basic steps. The first thing is you got to be really clear on your goals. What is it you're trying to achieve in business and in life? And as part of your goals, what are you trying to achieve financially? Because we all have bills to pay. So you got to be really clear. And many people are very anxious when it comes to looking at their numbers. The numbers don't lie. You got to be really clear on, we started talking about revenue and net income in a business. You got to be really clear on what's your overhead? What does it actually cost you to keep the lights on in your business every single month? And what does it cost every single month to support your lifestyle? Whatever your lifestyle is and whatever lifestyle you want. If you know the numbers, it really helps you try to determine how you can do the best job possible getting the amount of revenue in your bank account every month to support those numbers. So goals are really important, and financial goals are an important part of that. You've got to be really clear on what your top skills and talents are, and there are really two basic components to that. One is, what is it that you love doing the most, and what are you most competent at performing? And where those intersect, and they have the greatest intersection, those are your super skills, and that's what can provide the best value to your clients and customers. Then when it comes to what's out there in the world, as a solopreneur expert, frankly, as any business, you're not going to be selling to the entire world. You're going to be selling to some subset. So who is it that you really want to serve? Who do you want to have the most impact on? And frankly, this is often counter to the way many people think. The narrower your target market is, the better you'll be able to stand out and to attract customers and sell. So if you want to help people maximize their profits when they sell goods in flea markets, that's a pretty narrow target. If you're a CPA and your primary target is helping people in the construction industry deal with the myriad financial regulations and components in their business, that's a pretty narrow target. And you'll get known for being really good at that one thing. So you got to be really clear on whom you want to serve. And then when you're clear on your super skills and who you want to serve, the most important thing you need to do is to do some market research. We all have our own perception of what needs doing in our marketplace. But what goes on inside our head is not necessarily what's going to lead to a sale. Your prospective customers will tell you what will lead to a sale. So you need to ask them. And you can start by asking people who are your current clients. Ask them, what is it that keeps you awake at night? What do you struggle with the most? And if you have an existing business and you have good relationships with even if it's a small number of clients, start there. Take some time to ask them, and ask them with some regularity. Don't just ask them once, but ask them. It depends on what kind of business you're in and who your clients are. But you could sit down with your clients, once or twice a year, maybe once a quarter, and have a conversation about what's going on. I'd love to hear some feedback about where you're struggling the most, and they'll tell you where the biggest need is for your services, and that's your best opportunity. And then going back to something you said earlier about the 80-20 rule and who you actually sell to, it's so much easier to do a better job delivering quality and delivering value to existing clients and customers than it is to sell to a new client and customer. Because your existing clients already know you, like you, and trust you. So if you can identify a need they have that they're unable to fill on their own, and you can help fill that need, then it should be a relatively easy sale if you're pricing it correctly. So you should start there. So the market research is really important. And then the other piece when it comes to recurring revenue, here's where solopreneur experts often get tripped up. The greater our expertise and the smarter we are, the more we like solving complex problems, because that's exciting for us. The reality is, from a business perspective, it's actually a lot more profitable to solve something that's simple for us to solve and efficient for us to solve, but hard for our clients to solve, because they will pay for that. And then we can create our own system and deliver the same system over and over again to multiple clients relatively easily. We can start to optimize it. We can automate it. If you look at people who, as an example, who create online courses, one of the things they do is they take whatever system they're using, and the simpler it is for them, to deliver it over and over again, they'll simplify it to the point where they can teach their system to somebody else using some methodology of video, audio, a book, slides, or some combination, and often sell those things for a fairly high price if they're packaging it correctly and making it easy for people to learn and implement. So I would say those are the basic steps.
I like what you said about what I would call a niche, because I've seen people say, no, they don't want to specialize in one specific area because there are only, and I'm just making up numbers, 500 possible clients. They'd rather do something that has 500,000. You're not going to get to 500,000 people. It's just not going to happen. It's not realistic, but they don't see it because they figure more potential clients means more real clients, and more real clients means more money. But
Correct.
The truth of the matter, as you said, is it's the exact opposite.
Right. Right. So if your ideal price point, let's say, is $1,000 a month for what it is you're going to be offering, how many clients do you actually need to support the overhead in your business and to support your lifestyle? You're not going to need hundreds of clients.
And you know, it's funny. I was at a diner yesterday, the day before, and you don't like to listen in on other people's conversations, but there, every so often there's somebody whose voice carries, and you just can't help it. And I hear this man saying to this other gentleman, "You are a great physician. You are at the top of your profession, but there is no way that you can be a good businessman. You can't be at the top of two different professions." And I'm thinking to myself, this is not going to end well for this gentleman. And the next thing the doctor says to him is, "Well, I've built $1 million practice." And without missing a beat, the coach, consultant, whatever he was, said, "Yes, but with me, I can get you to $10 million. And without missing a beat, the doctor looked at him and said, "I don't want a $10 million practice. I'm happy with a $1 million practice. And by the way, I invited you here today to meet with me for lunch to discuss how I can make my upcoming book an Amazon #1 bestseller." So this guy wasn't listening. He was there to sell his big service and not a simple one. And it's exactly the point that you just said. There's another example quickly, which is also a true story. the locksmith. I had a colleague whose husband was a locksmith, and when we met the first time, he told me that that morning at 3 o'clock, he got a call to go out because somebody had locked the keys in their car. And he arrived. The guy proves to him that he's the owner of the car. He walks over to the car. He opens the car door in the amount of time it's taken me to tell you this story.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets out the keys. He gives them a bill for $250. And the man says, "Why should I pay you $250 for something that literally took you 5 seconds to do?" And he smiles and he says, "Because I know how to do this in 5 seconds and not damage your car." So it's your expertise, it's your niche, it's being willing to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and open up somebody's car without damaging it.
Correct.
You didn't mention something, and it kind of surprises me. You were talking about having revenue. Now, revenue is important, but cash flow is king.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain to clients the difference between revenue and cash flow?
Well, the reality is for a very small business, particularly a one-person business, what works best for them is generally having consistent cash flow and consistent revenue. So one of the things that I teach people is, how do you structure your business model, especially if you are selling your expertise? How do you structure it so that you get paid in advance of delivering your service without having to invoice clients? Because the bottleneck that many solopreneur experts find themselves in is they create a proposal, they make a deal with the client, they deliver their service, and then they invoice the client. And then they wait and wait and wait to get paid. You're much better off if you just tell people up front, here's how I work. I charge a monthly fee. It's X number of dollars per month. You give me your credit card, you get charged on the first of the month. And if for any reason you're unhappy, you can cancel at any point in time, and we will be done at the end of whatever time period you have paid for. It's a really simple arrangement, and then you don't have to worry about cash flow.
That's actually what I do, and I'm laughing because I have a new client, and I send an invoice. So the invoicing still exists, but in this case, I ask, "How do you want to pay me? Do you want to pay me by check, PayPal?" And they say, no, we'll do a direct deposit into your account." So fine. It was the first time that anybody had ever offered that, but okay. Not having to pay PayPal fee is okay. Not having to wait for the bank and then for the check to clear, that's okay. And sure enough, I sent it in. It was I remember it was the 14th of the month. The contract was to begin the next day, and for whatever reason, I just went. I always go and check every day, every other day, my bank account. All of a sudden, the money is there. And I literally almost fell off my chair, because that got me thinking, I don't remember the last time I wrote or received a check. It's all electronic.
Yes. And the reality is, whatever fee you're going to pay in merchant services to get paid by credit card, it more than makes up for whatever you'll have to pay in a problematic collection from one client one time in a year.
That's right. And not to mention, I thought you were going to say something totally different. It makes up for the lack of aggravation at anticipation. Where's the check?
Mm-hmm.
For example, today, as you know, but this will hopefully be viewed not only today, but months ahead, it may actually turn out that this is one of the coldest days in recorded history. I've got all my windows shut, the heat is blasting, and it's still cold in here. And there is no way on God's green earth that I would go out to the bank today to deposit a check, let alone walk to the mailbox to pick up a check, because it's just not worth it. But it just goes to show that with technology, even little things have not only been simplified, but eliminated. So your cash flow issues, all of the technical components have been eliminated.
Correct. But you have to structure your business and make your arrangements with your clients in a way that supports your need for cash flow.
And usually they understand. I've only had one client who insisted on paying at the end of the month. They never cheated me. They explained that was just their process, and they were a good client, and no problem. Everybody else pays just as you said. Beginning of the month, they get the service, and that's it.
Correct.
Now, there's a sweet spot between I'm trying to remember my economics class, the point of, I forget the term, but if you have a graph that shows where the number of clients and the income, there's a point of diminishing returns. That's what it's called, where you've now taken on too much and it's costing you. And you mentioned before that solopreneurs have the bad habit of not looking at their numbers. They don't know what is happening. So talk to us about how you know when you've reached that point where if you continue to grow the business the way you're doing it, working by yourself, you're now going to get into trouble, because your productivity is going to drop, meaning the quality of your service is going to decline, meaning you're going to start to lose clients. And of course, I'm assuming that it's a service company and not someone who's producing widgets.
Right.
Not that there's anything wrong.
So Bruce, there's actually an exercise that I do with clients that is a little different, but it achieves the same end result, which is a profitability map, where you're assigning a value to your existing clients based on two variables: how profitable they are to you and how easy they are to work with. And if you plot them on a graph and really just put them in one of four quadrants, they're either profitable and not so easy to work with. They could be not so profitable and easy to work with. They could be both profitable and easy to work with, and those are the kinds of clients you want to keep pursuing. Mm-hmm. And then the last category is those that are not so profitable and not so easy to work with. And I think at least once a year, you should do this exercise where you plot all of your clients on a little graph, and the ones that are not so easy to work with and not so profitable, you think about how you can have them exit your business. And when I do this with clients, it's really scary for most of them, because they think, oh, I'm going to actually lose income. And the reality is almost 100% of the time, they end up replacing those clients with more profitable clients. So they end up making more money and saving time.
Speaking of time, I can tell when an interview is good when I look over at the clock and I see the half hour is already over with. And this half hour went by very quickly. David, I thank you for coming on. And as you conclude with any final message for our viewers, I will put up your contact information. And I thank you profusely for taking the time to come on.
Yeah. I have one final message, Bruce, which
Please.
is we have a new program that we started last year called Best Network for Solopreneurs, where we take a group of solopreneurs through a very rigorous curriculum and a structured process to help them build recurring revenue. It works really well. And for anybody who might be interested in discussing it, you can contact me through our website or our phone number, and we'll set up time to speak.
And everyone can see both right now. David, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Bruce.
I want to thank everyone for watching. And as always, please keep focused on success.